your small medium enterprises. And I'm also working with an executive in Facebook and an executive within Microsoft who are trying to climb the ranks, so to speak. And what comes up time after time after time is personal brands. Kate, I'm not being seen by my associates the way I think I should be seen. Kate, my brand is not garnishing enough, positive reinforcement. There's not enough people looking at me. They're not seeing me the way I see myself. And it might just be that I don't have enough clients. So there's lots of different reasons why people come to me, whether they're independent, whether they're solopreneurs, or whether they're within an organization. But after we ask a few probing questions, we usually get down to there's a personal brand challenge, that they just really don't understand what it is, or they're not putting out into the world what they think it should be. Brand is one of those areas that I think people roll their eyes at nowadays, because you're kind of thinking, I get it, I've got it, I've heard it before. And the truth is you probably have and haven't in equal measure. Brand is overcomplicated. Brand is made out to be something that really probably isn't. And at its very, very essence, when we ask a simple question around brand, what I find most of the time within a room is we can't answer it, or we at least can't answer it simply enough. And if you can't answer it simply enough, you don't understand it enough. And I'm sure you've heard that before. When we're talking about personal brand today, I want to take you through a few questions. And they're not questions for right or wrong. They're not questions to determine whether you've got a better understanding than me or vice versa. It's just to kind of start the wheels turning in your head about brand, and hopefully starting to think about it slightly different. So if I ask a question around brand, and it can be very, very simple, it can be, what is brand? If you had to put into the chat box in a really, really simple form, no large paragraphs around what is brand, what would you put in? I'd love if you could just put in a couple of words or a couple of thoughts around what is brand, just so I can kind of gauge the understanding of the audience today. And Marie and Shauna, you might keep a wee eye on the chat box to see if anything interesting comes through. Don't be shy, guys. I'd rather not pick people out. Let's just put a couple of things into chat. What is brand? It's a very simple question. Or is it? Identify you present product logo. Your brand is your image, a person's product identifying mark. Well done, Jenna and Alicia. And again, logo, brand, colors, what I've got behind me, that generally comes in when we talk about brand. And that is part about brand, how you represent, what your logo is, what the colors are, that's all brand. But I'm not going to talk to you about that today, because I'm sure you know a lot about that already, or you've heard 20 presentations on brand and the importance of logo and font and color and how things sit together. That's not what this presentation is. So what is brand? What's really important today is, what is personal brand? So again, into the chat box, what is personal brand? What is personal brand? And again, what you're known for. Karina, I think that is brilliant. Your unique selling point, yeah, your USP. How you present yourself to others, your footprint. Love it, Shauna, love it. Really, really good stuff. So you can see whenever we're talking personal brand, you guys are getting it. Maybe you've seen my slides, maybe you know what I'm going to say already, but you're getting the essence that it's about you, personal, your footprint, your identifying mark. So you've got that already, which is brilliant. What helps you to promote and sell your products? Propaganda, Magnus, brilliant. Bring a bit of controversy into it. Propaganda. But what helps you promote and sell your product is brand. And today we're talking about brand being you. What is your personal brand? Consciousness, which intentionally could create influence on people's perception. Wow, we've got a brilliant crowd here today. And so a really, really good understanding around personal brand, which is absolutely brilliant. So, and we've got an understanding as to what brand is. What is personal brand? We see understanding around what personal brand is. Guys, what is personal brand? 3 words or less. What is personal brand? 3 words or less. Nice and simple, nice and clear. Into the chat box, please. Awareness, awareness. Okay, love it. It's good. Anyone else? My personality, my personality. Ellen, I love that. Credibility, integrity, name. Okay. Anything else? 3 words or less. I want to get right down to the nub of this. What is personal brand? What is personal brand? Somebody's got their mic on there. Sorry, so there's a bit of disruption across. You can turn it off. What is personal brand? Okay, so we've got credibility. Would it be fair to say that credibility, reputation, name help describe some of what personal brand might be, as opposed to really get to the nub of what is personal brand? Think about that. 3 words or less. An identifying mark. Somebody else mentioned USP. An identifying mark. Personal brand is an identifying mark. Something of which you can identify with. But the real key here, guys, is it's something that I can identify with you with. So it's an identifying mark. And it has to be, and we've already heard these words, unique, individual, personal, an identifying mark. An identifying mark. Just think about that, an identifying mark. That's all brand is. We can read all the brand books in the world. We can write essays on it, but when you pull it right back, when you pull the onion right back, brand is nothing more than an identifying mark. That is it. No need to overcomplicate it. What is your identifying mark? What is your personal identifying mark? If I asked you, and there's plenty of talk today, what is your identifying in 1 word? What is it? Let's get it into the chat. Let's see what kind of stuff comes up. What is your identifying mark in a word? Perseverance. Love it. Absolutely love it. Personable. Love it, Angie. Very, very nice. Personable. That's a beautiful one. Personable. Resilient. And my goodness, did you guys need to be resilient over the last couple of years? Driven, reliable. Friendliness. Oh, Brenda, I love that. Friendliness. Connected. Ellen. Creative. Average. Okay, average. Pragmatic. Magnus. I kind of thought pragmatic was going to come up for you, Magnus. I don't know you, but that's the vibe I'm getting. Okay, Maria and Sean, I'm sure you're loving seeing some of this. Creative, you know, pragmatic, driven, resilient, average, all these fantastic words to help start creating your identifying mark, which is fantastic. Guys, think about this. When you think about your identifying mark and you put that out into the world of work, you put that out into an interview room, you put that out into the boardroom, you put that out to wherever it is you want to be in life. Do you think others are saying the same thing? Is what you feel your identifying mark is the same as what I might pick up if I was in your company, or is it different? Just say same or different into the chat box, please. Again, just to try to get a gauge in this. It's the same. So Elizabeth, so we're thinking that what you think you're putting out is what other people are picking up, Shauna and Elizabeth or Elsbeta. Okay, so we're thinking it's the same. Exactly. Yeah, brilliant, excellent. Depends. Yeah, even probably, yeah, it could depend on the person. It can depend on who you're with. It can depend on the company that you're in. Could it also depend on the mood that you're in? Guys, could it depend on the mood that you're in? Could it depend on the vibe that you're in? Could it depend on in the company that you keep, in the environment that you're in? Always depends on what you're on. Okay. So would it be fair to say that your personal brand is your brand? It's your personal brand. You're resilient as a person. That's your core. But how resilient you are depends on the company that you're in, the environment that you're in, and the kind of mood that you're in. Okay, very good. So we're clear on what brand is, we're clear on what personal brand is, or we've got a good understanding of what personal brand is. And a lot of people seem to be clear enough on what your identifying mark might be, what that might look like, what that might sound like. That comes right back to your personal brand. So for instance, I can't remember the name, but I think it might have been Eve, resilient, because resilient has been such a word used, you know, recently. It's what is your personal brand? If your personal brand is resilient, then how do you show resilience? How does that personal brand represent itself? How does it present? And how do you make sure that I see resilient when I see your brand? Any ideas around that? Magnus Rocky, okay. Any ideas around that? Do you think you can portray the brand you want, or do you think it depends on how the person picks it up? Again, you don't really have to answer. These are just thoughts that I want you to start thinking about around your personal brand when you walk into that room. Okay, so listen, it appears that everyone seems to be clear enough on personal brand, clear enough on how they may want to represent their personal brand, and are quite clear that it depends on the mood that you're in. What I'd like to do is tell you a story time. And what I want you to do with this story, you don't need to take down any notes, it's not a complicated story, but what I want you to do with the story is, at the end, I'm going to ask a few questions. I love questions, as you've probably realized already. And I just think about how those questions are related to you, or how they might be able to help you. The story is a guide to personal brand. The story is a guide to personal brand, and I tell it to try to really allow people to understand what personal brand is. And I'm going to take off the slides in order to tell the story. So, growing up in the mid-80s, I know I'm giving away my age here, guys, and I don't look old enough, but growing up in the mid-80s in a huge housing development area in the north of Ireland, and we've probably got a huge northern audience here, I was known as not Kate, but I was known as the fortune teller's daughter. My name was the fortune teller's daughter. And when I met people, I was introduced as the fortune teller's daughter. For those people that don't know what a fortune teller is, it's a clairvoyant. And that's how I was known. Every single person in my estate, and it was a blue collar workforce, father was working and mum stayed at home. And most of those fathers were bricklayers, they were joiners, they were construction workers. And my father was a fortune teller. Now, to be 10, 12, 13, 15, 16, the whole way through my life, to stick out like that, to be different like that, was absolutely horrific. Because as a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, I wanted to be the same as everybody else. I did not want to be different. I wanted to be the same. It absolutely killed me. I wouldn't say I was bullied. I was a resilient personality. I had lots going for my personality, so it didn't get me to that stage. But I would walk down the street and people would cross the road for fear that I might put a spell on them if I touched them. And that wasn't nice growing up. People would put their palm out and ask, could I tell their fortune? And again, at 7 and 10 and 11 and 12, I didn't want that to be the thing to me. But growing up, I was the fortune teller's daughter. I remember being introduced to my very first boyfriend's father. And when he asked who I was, my boyfriend at the time, who's no longer my boyfriend, introduced me as the fortune teller's daughter. That man, and I remember it to this day, then said, but what is her name? And I replied, Kate. It was the first time I can remember consciously I was asked what my name was, because I was always the fortune teller's daughter. There was no Facebook, there was no website, There was no mobile phones. We're talking early 80s, mid 80s, early 90s here. None of that existed. Yet we had on average 70, yes, 70 clients a day. Seven clients a day, 7 days a week. So about 70 clients on average a week coming to our house to have their fortune told. It was a big business. No mobiles, no website, no Facebook, no Instagram, nothing. When you drove into our estate and there were hundreds of houses, and you know the housing executive house, brown bricks, brown door. We were the only house that stood out in that park. We had a bright red door. The house was painted yellow. It stuck out like a sore thumb. But when you drove into that park, you did not have to ask where the fortune teller lived. It was very, very clear. We stood out. And when you drove into that park, you didn't knock 3 or 4 brown doors trying to figure out which house the fortune teller might live in. It was very, very clear. We stood out. It was behind the bright red door, or at least that was going to be the best bet as to where we may be. When you walked into that house, it was a regular house. It was your normal everyday hallway and living room, etc., until you got to the kitchen. And when you walked into the kitchen, there was a huge brown leather chair and a table. And on that table sat a crystal ball and a deck of tarot cards. And when you walked into that kitchen table and you sat down in the chair, that was a very different experience. That was an experience that was memorable. That was an experience that was different. That was an experience that stood out. It was not your everyday, certainly not in the early 80s, early 90s. And when you sat in that chair, and we've seen people do it all the time, you'd see them look round and under and over and try to look through the other doors because they were looking for the coffin. They were looking for the book of spells because the rumors out there were that my dad slept in the coffin and that I, the fortune teller's daughter, the eldest daughter, surely the one who's going to take on, the trade, had a book of spells that she worked on night and day. I don't know where I got my schoolwork in, to be honest, with all the spells. But that's what they were looking for. That was the rumor. I would say, Dad, why are we not telling people that we don't have a coffin? Why are we not telling people that we don't have a book of spells? And he answered, it's good for business. What he meant was it's good for brand. But brand wasn't a word back then. When I took friends after school to the house, I would beg that morning before I left, can we hide the cards? Can we hide the crystal ball? Can we just look a bit more normal? And my dad would repeat, we're not hiding who we are. We're proud of who we are. But as a 13, 14, 15-year-old girl, that's not who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the fortune teller's daughter. I didn't want to be different. I didn't want to stand out, but I did. Now, fast track about 15, 20 years later, I'm in a boardroom in Dublin and brand is now becoming a thing because brand's quite new, guys. Like it's only become a big thing in the last 10 years. It's been there for a very long time. And companies, Microsoft, Facebook, large organizations started taking in brand experts, paying huge money to have people come into the organization to start explaining brand. And I'm sitting at the table in the boardroom. And at this stage, the fortune teller's daughter and the tarot cards and the crystal ball are a very distant memory, barely thinking about them at all. And at that table on that day, when this brand expert from London came in, had the big, big bucks to explain to us what brand was, I got it immediately, instantly. There wasn't a question asked in that boardroom that day that I wasn't able to answer in a way that everyone understood. And I was pulled aside and asked, Kate, is marketing your background? Have you done marketing? Have you got a degree in marketing or branding? I said, no. And they said, well, how do you know this stuff? How are you tapping into this so easily? And I didn't know at that stage. I only figured this out about 2 years ago. During lockdown, in fact, I had to do preparation for a talk, a 5-minute talk. And I was told I had to do something that was really different. It had to be your story, but you had to connect it to the workplace. And I thought, okay, the fortune teller's daughter. I was always going to write a book entitled The Fortune Teller's Daughter. And I thought, how can I use the fortune teller's daughter as a work lesson? And bang, it came to me. I went, oh my goodness, how have I not seen it all these years? The bright red door was branding. The crystal ball was branding. The rumors of what we were doing with the coffin was branding. It was branding genius. We were branding long before I even knew what brand was. We were branding long before brand even really existed. I was walking around with the brand, The Fortune Teller's Daughter, on my forehead long before I even knew I had it. Now, I left that housing estate in that park 20 plus years ago, and my father passed away about 20 years ago. But I visited that town 4 weeks ago, and I went to a chip van and I was getting whatever, my burger and chips. And as I left, and I had noticed a few funny looks whilst I was there, passed no remarks. But as I walked away, I could hear the girl in the chip van, who was probably my age, whisper, "That's the fortune teller's daughter." That was 20 plus years ago, guys. And that brand is still as strong today as it was 20 years ago. And there's been no tarot cards and no crystal ball and no bright red door. That bright red door has probably been painted brown since, in a very, very long time. Brand, if you get it right, will stand out. Brand, if you get it right, will be memorable. And brand, if you get it right, will be talked about long after you're gone. So don't underestimate personal brand, because it's absolutely key to what we do. And on that note, I would like you to have a little think about a couple of things. When you're thinking about your identifying mark, and you talked about your identifying mark in the chat, you're thinking about things like personality. You're thinking about how you sound. You're thinking about the visual, the energy, the words, the feelings. Think about all that stuff when you're thinking about what is your personal brand, what is your identifying mark, and then ask yourself, are you memorable as that brand? Ask yourself, do you stand out? Because a personal brand that's not memorable, that doesn't stand out, is not going to do for you what it can. If you get your personal brand right, you will stand out in that organization. You will absolutely kill all other participants in that interview, and you will climb the ranks. If you're opening your own business, you will help draw people to you. The bright red door, no Facebook, no website, no advertising, drew on average 70 people a week, because the brand and the story and the illusion and the energy that was put out there was good enough to make people come and see, to make people want to come and have a little look. So what I'd like you to think about now is this, and it's very, very simple. What is your bright red door? What is your bright red door? If you look at yourself with your competition left and right of you, and that might be competition in an interview, it might be people that are on your course that you're going to, try to get a job over. Are you the red door in that lineup? Or are you a brown door in that lineup? And if you're a red door, and you can be a red door, you can create the red door. And this is the important bit. You can create the red door. The red door can be whatever you want it to be. What is it? You do need to get clear on that in regards to personal brand. It's the thing that we notice about you before we really even know you. It's the thing that maybe I see before I even come into contact with you. It's that very, very early stages of you walking through the door into the interview room, of you sitting in the boardroom with 20 other people. What is your bright red door? Now, some people get complicated in this and they make it too big. A bright red door can be something as simple as you've got red hair. You've got crazy, mad, curly red hair. Use it because it'll stick out. It'll stand out. You've got a fro. Use it. It'll stick out. It'll stand out. It'll be memorable. You have a northern accent in a southern boardroom. Ramp it up. Dial it up. You've got a really good, strong handshake. Make sure you shake the hand clean off the person you're speaking to. David Mead, black rim glasses. Mistake or red door? You tell me. What is your red door? Any ideas on what your red door might be? Just having a chat about this. Boldness, personality, boldness, people person. Okay, so what do you think your red door is? Has anyone got a natural red door, or is a red door something that you're going to have to paint? And both are okay. Some of us have a natural red door. It's just something very obvious about us that catches people's attention and it starts to build a personal brand. Others have to paint the door bright red. So if you put into the chat, is anyone figured out what their red door might be? Height and presence, Maria, brilliant, height and presence. Again, a big, tall person or a large person coming into the room, use that. Don't hide behind the door, pardon the pun. Use it. Use that to your advantage. I'm 4'11" and a half. The 0.5 is really, really important. And I have a handshake that genuinely would take the hand off you. I don't hold back when I shake someone's hand, because when they see my demeanor and I'm small, they're expecting, maybe they see weakness, maybe they see shyness. I make sure that that's not what they see and that's not what they feel. And when most of my work was in the South, I dialed up that northern accent. I made sure that I was remembered as the wee one with the northern accent. You use what you have, and if you don't have something that's as obvious as that, then you paint it red. Quietness, Claire. Your bright red door is quietness. And again, then it's thinking about, what does that bright red door say to the world? What does that bright red door say about your personal brand? How do you use quietness as your bright red door, as your identifying mark to draw people in? And that's what your bright red door is about, guys. So don't let your bright red door be a mistake. Don't let your bright red door be what I think it is. Decide what your red door is. Be clear on what your red door is, and then project that out into the world. Dial that up. And you may have to dial it down at times. Somebody said height. I'm working with a client at the minute. He is a large guy. Lovely guy, but his presence sometimes in a boardroom can be quite dominating, quite frightening to the people around him. But when he smiles, the world lights up. I mean, this guy has the best smile you've ever seen ever, and his eyes literally light the room. So we're using that large person coming into the room who instantly softens the second he smiles. So use what you have, tap into what you have naturally, and start to think about how you need to dial it up, dial it down. But make no mistake, your red door is out there in the world this second. Every time you meet someone, they're seeing your door. It's up to you what color it is. It's up to you how it is, how it looks and how it sounds, but you control that. What's your crystal ball? Now, this gets people all the time. What is your crystal ball? I don't have a crystal ball, Kate. I don't have a set of tarot cards. Anyone want to kind of guess what I mean by what is your crystal ball? What am I getting at when I ask, what is your crystal ball? Anyone, any thoughts, or have they thought I've literally completely lost the plot? What is your future? I think that is a good one, Sean, and I might use that again, but that's not where I am at the minute. Oh, Jenna, your prop. Can we elaborate prop? What do we mean by prop if we're thinking workplace? What do you have to offer to the world? Visual experience. Crystal ball, the greatest advantage. Greatest advantage, love that, Elizabeth. international experience. So crystal ball, this part of this presentation is, the red door is what you've got. And somebody mentioned their fashion sense. Fashion sense is brilliant. Before I get on to that. And what I used to do, and you'll see I've got costume jewelry on. If I was going somewhere and I needed to make sure they remembered me, and I thought, right, they're going to remember the 4'11.5" with a strong handshake and the northern accent, or do I need to dial it up? And dial it up, I might do something like this, put on a big ring, or red shoes, or blue boots, or something, a statement necklace, Angie. Then whenever people are trying to remember who I was, because they usually don't remember Kate or Mary or James or Magnus, we're not great with names initially, but we will remember the one in the red boots, the girl with the big necklace, or whatever it might be. So red door is as simple as that. We don't need to overcomplicate it. It can be hair, it can be dress sense, it can be voice, it can be, lots of different things. Probably my hats to keep my bald head warm. Very, very important, Magnus. Yes. And again, the guy with a hat. So think about the red door. I think we've nailed red door. We've got red door. Moving on to crystal ball. What is crystal ball? So it is your tool. It is your prop. It is the thing that you do. So for instance, if you're a solicitor, it will be something around a skills. Eve, you've nailed it. What is your skill within the workplace? If we've got 5 solicitors, or we've got 5 accountants, or we've got 5 scientists, or we've got 5 of anything, we all probably have the same skill. We're all probably doing the same type of job. Why me? Why are you going to pick me as a coach? There are thousands of coaches in the world. The place is flooded with them at the minute. So my crystal ball is my skill. It's what I do. But there's other people doing the same thing. So what is your crystal ball? So we're saying that crystal ball is skill, it's prop, it's the thing you do. Take it down, take it up a notch. What else? What else? What you bring to the table that no one else can. What you bring to the table that no one else can, Angie. Absolutely fantastic. What is your crystal ball? My crystal ball is not that I'm a coach, because there's thousands and thousands of coaches. My crystal ball is not that I'm an accountant, not that I'm a solicitor, not that I'm any one of those things. They're labels. That's who I am. That's what my job role is. That's not my crystal ball. And that's the bit that people fall down on. My crystal ball is not my role. My crystal ball is what I bring to the table that no one else can. So when you sat at our kitchen table, that was an experience that you didn't get every day. It was different. It was memorable. So what is it that you do? Think about the skill that you have. Think about the role that you hope to move into. What is it about what you do that makes it different, that will make you stand out? Any ideas, any thoughts? Has anyone got it already? Has anyone got a natural crystal ball in their hands right now? And here's the thing, it is one of those things that we really have to think about. It's one of those things that we build up that changes over time, but you do have to figure out what it is, because personal brand is an identifying mark. And an identifying mark is not me being a coach. That's not an identifying mark. That's my role. But it's not my identifying mark. It's not my personal brand. And it's certainly not my crystal ball. So have a think, guys. Think about what might your bright red door be? And I think we're pretty clear on that. There's some brilliant stuff coming out on that. What is your crystal ball? Has anyone got one? Anyone willing to put a crystal ball into the chat? And this is the bit. This bit's difficult, guys. There's no bones around it. So if I'm doing this with a person, this is 5 weeks work. We'll do 5 sessions on the red door, the crystal ball, and the next piece. It's not easy. We won't get to it now, but all I want to do for now is get you thinking, plant the seed. Leadership, how you execute your red door. Interesting. Genuine interest, malleability. So think of, and again, the question is, if I'm going to stir this a little, solution to problem, contacts is a brilliant one, Maria. Wow, that's a good one. That is a good one. Because here's what I was just about to say. What's different about your skill? Solution to problem. Okay, I can solve problems. And I'm sure if we ask people in the audience who feels that they're good at solving problems, we'll get a few hands up. What's different about you? Maybe, Magnus, it's the way you solve problems. It's the way you problem solve as opposed to solving problems. So if I put out into the world, hi, my name's Kate Rooney and I'm a coach. One of my key skills is problem solving. A lot of people can come in and do the same thing. It may be around how I problem solve. So we're getting a lot of stuff here, but do you know what we're getting, guys? We know what it's lacking: identifying marks. What we're lacking here is identifying marks. Is the crystal ball always God-gifted or can be learned? Please explain the relevance of life story of Narrative. Okay, that's a whole other area. But just think about, what is it about you, your crystal ball, your skill? Your skill can be that you're a solicitor. Your skill can be that you're a coach. Your skill can be that you're a speaker. What makes you unique? What makes it different to you? What is your specific skill? This is going to be important as you go through life, guys. It may not be important initially in a role, but it becomes very important if you want to climb the ranks, if you want to move through the sector, and if you want to get understood better. So think about what your crystal ball is. Not an easy one to figure out. Contacts. Why did I jump on contacts, Maria? I jumped on contacts because your little black book will be something that I don't have. Therefore, your little black book of contacts and your network are very interesting to me. And that might make you stand out and might give you an edge over other people. So think about your crystal ball. So we're thinking about your red door. The red door is how you show up into the world, what that presence is. Crystal ball is your skill set, but not just your skill set, what's unique in regards to your skill set. And the next piece is your book of spells. One gets people as well. Your book of spells is nothing to do with the book of spells, and it's nothing to do with a coffin, and it's nothing to do with any of that sort of stuff. And just for the record, we didn't have a coffin and we didn't have a book of spells. Your book of spells is what's left behind when you walk out the door. It is something that we're all very aware of. We're really aware at this stage of the energy that we bring into the room, the energy that we resonate. What we're less aware of, or where we spend less time thinking about, is the energy we leave behind. What is said when we walk out the door? What is talked about in those circles, those rooms that we need our name to be mentioned in, and we do need our name to be mentioned in rooms? What is said there? And that's where words like the words that we used there a few minutes ago, like empathy and, you know, understanding and collaboration and that type of stuff really starts coming in. It's what do you want to be left behind when you leave the room? What is your book of spells? What is the thing people say and talk about and try to figure out? Anyone got any thoughts on that? And again, not an easy one. I'll give you an example of this. So LinkedIn's a fantastic tool, and I've got about maybe 70 plus recommendations on LinkedIn. And before somebody writes me a recommendation or writes something about me, I can nearly predict what they're going to write. Now, predict was probably the wrong use of words, not because I've crystal ball, I'm not a fortune teller, or I've got tarot cards, but I can predict what they're going to write. Why do you think I can predict what they're going to write before it's sent to me? Hands up, or put something in the chat. How do I know what somebody's going to say about me before they say it and get it right most of the time? Let's put something into the chat. What do you think? No takers? Because that book of spells, read behind the lines because you always know how you made them feel. I love that. Love that. Because you know your own skills and selling points. You have created a brand. Thank you, Karen. When you create your brand, your personal brand, when you create what that personal brand is, then you know what you're putting out into the world. You know what you're putting out into the room. You know what you're putting out into whatever place you're in. Therefore, law of averages, you know what's going to come back. You're clear on what's going to come back. So if I come on screen and I am quite, reserved and I'm quite quiet and I think about what I'm going to say, that's probably going to come up when you start describing me. If I come on screen and I'm high energy and I'm warm and I'm approachable and I'm fun or whatever, That's what you're probably going to say, because what we put out, we get back a lot of the time. So when you're thinking about your book of spells, you're consciously thinking about, what do I want to be said about me and my personal brand or my company or whatever it is that you're doing? What do I want to be said? And here's the trick. Whatever you want to be said will be said, because you control that. And it's not Machiavellian, and it's not, any of that. It's just that you control that. You get out what you put in. It will come back to you in the way you want it to come back. You orchestrate your personal brand. You are in control of your personal brand. And if you're in control of your personal brand, you're in control of your book of spells. And what I mean by book of spells is you are in control of what is said when you leave the room. And that's what personal brand is about. It's about deciding what you want to put out and making sure that when it comes back, the loop has been connected. That's what personal brand is all about. It's about your identifying mark, being clear on what your identifying mark is. And the piece there that's important is what makes you different, what makes you memorable, what makes you stand out. Being clear on your identifying mark and starting your personal brand journey from that point, from the identifying mark point. So think about what your bright red door might be and spend some time on it. Think about what your crystal ball is. What is it within the skill set that you have that makes you truly unique? And think about your book of spells. What is said when you leave the room? And when those recommendations and that feedback starts to come in, that you're not surprised by what it says, because you've put that out. So it's just coming back. An identifying mark, guys. Personality, sound, visual, energy, words, feelings. Are you memorable? Do you stand out? Are you clear on your identifying mark? Or is it something that needs a little bit of help? The Fortune Teller's Daughter is a true story. It's my story. And here's something really, really strange. I never thought about the Fortune Teller's Daughter for about 20 years because I didn't like that identity. I didn't want to be associated as the Fortune Teller's Daughter. Yet when I bought my first house, I painted my door bright pink. And I didn't paint my door bright pink because our door was red. And I didn't paint my door bright pink to stand out. And I didn't paint my door bright pink because I was thinking about your bright red door. None of that was conscious. I painted my door bright pink completely unconsciously. My second house, I painted it like a lime green. It was horrible, but I painted it a lime green. It stood out like a sore thumb, again, unconsciously. Because when brand is inside you and it's inside your belly, you can't help yourself. You can't help but try to stand out, to try to be memorable, whether you're doing that consciously or not. The Fortune Teller's Daughter is a true story. It's my story about brand. And I stand here today, 20 years later. I'm proud to be the Fortune Teller's Daughter. I'm proud to have got the education I got at a really early age, even though I didn't realize I was getting it, because it's helped me understand brand. And more importantly, it helps me work with people on their personal brand that need it and that benefit from it in a novel way that's not too boring and not too straight-laced. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you'll think about your bright red door. I hope you'll have a little think about what your crystal ball might be and around that book of spells. And I'd love to get your feedback. I'm on LinkedIn, so contact me if you figure out what your bright red door is or your book of spells, because I'd love to hear. And I'm opening up the chat or your mic to questions. So if anyone would like to ask anything, ask away. And I hope that personal brand is a wee bit clearer today. Thank you.